All right, good morning, everybody. We are live. It is Wednesday. Oh, Damon Calvari is here, and Sia Sangweni, and me, and you. And why are you looking so perplexed, Damon? What's going on? Is something confusing you? Oh, you look very worried.
One becomes very self-conscious when one knows one's live on YouTube. It's like the first time.
Oh.
And also, what happened as well, I've had a side path for the last 8 years, and recently my wife said I look like a paedophile. So I've gone back to the I've gone to the middle path, and I was just trying to see whether the middle path is working better or not, or maybe it's just
hey, hang on a second. Who told you look like a paedophile? Who said that to you? Your wife.
She said your hair is thinned out, and the side part doesn't look so good anymore. Now, my father had the side part. I don't think my father ever looked like a paedophile. But
no.
So I've gone back to the middle path. And I don't know what you think. I don't see. I think I need a haircut. That's the issue. I think if I just had, if I had my Kim Jong-un haircut, which I had a couple of months ago, which I think worked well, maybe I'll go.
Yes.
So I look like a North Korean dictator, which apparently that look is better than a pedophile. Does that make sense?
Not really. It's I think, as you say, you just need a haircut because I don't see the pedophile side parting connection. To me, those two are not necessarily the same thing. But there we go.
I go to my barber, this Indian guy, and I say to him, I want a 0 on the side and a 5 on top. And he's very hesitant. He's just, "Oh, you sure? Are you sure?" He asked me twice. I'm sure. And when he first did it, I got a bit of a shock, but it works. It's very in. It's very in.
Well, a 0 on the side means you don't want anything shaved off on the sides.
No, 0 is the grading on the razor where it's clean, but it's not. But 0 is still not 100%. It's not Kojak clean. Nobody
because
knows
if you have a 0 on the sides, you're going to have hair like King Henry V. Have you ever seen a picture of what his hair looked like?
Oh no.
Okay, I'll show you quickly, and then you'll get an idea because that's not a good look.
I'm familiar with King Henry VIII. He's the one who killed all his wives, right? He was 8 wives.
Yes, correct. Mm-hmm.
And he was huge. Apparently, his coffin was very, very wide.
He was.
I'm not familiar with King Henry V.
King Henry V had a very famous haircut. Let me see if I can find you a picture of it quickly, and then you'll get some idea of what I'm talking about. Not a great look though, and that seems to me to have been what a 0 would look like.
Okay.
Let me show you this. Yeah.
Well, I had it a couple of months ago, and it kind of worked. Yeah.
Okay. Here's King Henry V. Are you ready? Look. There. That's the kind of hairstyle he would.
Oh wow.
That's not a good.
Hey, I'm sure I've seen a hipster in Cape Town rock that before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
so Damon,
not too far off.
I think since COVID and lockdown and everything, people have kind of ignored their look maybe. But then maybe we're getting back into things. I'm not sure. Don't know. We'll see.
I mentioned last week that I cheated on my hairdresser and went to a barber who just gave me a kind of a much more rudimentary haircut. But I like it because it's so easy to get ready in the mornings now. And the hairdresser, he was trying to do something where he was trying to make it longer in some places, and it just became, it was too much work. So now I've got to man up and go back to my hairdresser and explain.
No, well, the thing is,
I've ruined months of hard work on his part.
Well, it's a relationship thing now. With the hairdresser, I think a barber's better because it's less conversation, it's cheaper, and they get straight to it. With the hairdresser, it's almost like a social thing. There's the koch, the gossip, the stories.
Yeah, you see, I'm not really into that.
Well, then you must stick to the barber. Stick to the barber. I go to the barber. He's wonderful. He hardly speaks a word of English. He's got some Gujarat funny channel on DSTV playing on in the background. I think he's watching. I'm not sure. It's a soap opera, and all he can say is 60 rand. And
Is he
Doesn't
Turkish?
That concern you that he's watching TV while working
Indian.
on your hair?
They're Indian. Well, the TV's behind me, but I kind of see him glance in the corner of his eye very occasionally. But I think he does a decent job. But they only deal in cash. And I keep on forgetting that. So I always have to leave and drive to the ATM and then come back. Because who only works with cash these days? Anyway.
That's a little suspicious.
A lot of the comments this morning, very happy to see Damon Calvari. Robert Cunningham says, good to see you, Damon. And then Etienne says, oh. That's kind of like that's your thing. There's David who says, yay, some Damon madness to start the day. Sean says, good morning. Great to see Damon back. So you know what? People like you. Neurosis for breakfast. That's what they're saying. Very nice.
No, that's very nice. But can I just, while we're on the topic of being unfaithful to a service provider, I had a very awkward situation this last week and a half of it, but it was unavoidable. My daughter, she's 8 years old. She complains that she's got a sore cheek. So I think very often she just is faking it, malingering. But it turns out, so I took her to this dentist, and they said she needs root canal.
Oh,
she needs root canal. So
that's a big deal.
So I take her back the next day, and he says, no, she's not keeping her mouth wide enough. She's got to go for general anesthetic. I must book an appointment at some fancy schmancy clinic down the road, and she was coming for general anesthetic. So my wife says, no, this doesn't sound right. So I postpone the root canal, and I take it for a second opinion. I take it to another dentist. So I'm like, so this other dentist says, no, she doesn't need root canal. So now I'm going to tell the first dentist I had to cancel the root canal of the first dentist, but I didn't want to admit that I'm going for a second opinion. So now I'm at this crucial thing where I've got to write a friendly email to the first dentist to say, no, well, to be honest, I went for a second opinion. My wife and I were not so keen on the general anesthetic, yada, yada, yada. So anyway, but the thing is, I still got to go back to the second dentist because he did some fancy thing with the tooth. She's got to go back in 3 weeks' time. So she still might need the root canal. So anyway, it's all, what can you do? You got to do what's best for yourself and your child, I suppose. So I'm not going to feel guilty.
Damon,
I know this is not relevant, but I can't see you guys. I can only see myself, eh? What should I click on?
No, that's fine. We put you on. You're on the main screen. It's like you're the starring role at the moment. See that? That's what we can do now.
What are you guys? Well, are you two chopped liver? I mean, how does that work?
No, so we're still here. So all we do is we switch it like that, and then there you are. You see.
And the YouTube viewers, they just see me.
Yeah, it's like a camera switcher on a TV show, so we can see.
They saw my new middle path. Very good.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, I was still trying to analyze it. I don't know, Damon. I kind of like your hair as it was.
Well, I'm going to go for a
haircut. Put it in the
soon.
suggestion box.
I just haven't had a chance to get away to get this haircut, man. Anyway, I'll do it.
How's the family, Damon? How's Bernice? How's she doing?
Look, very well. She works very hard. She's now a consultant, and she's got clients with work and that. So so things are improving a little bit. Well, I can shop a little bit more at Woolworths, a bit more than normal.
That's very nice.
But still only one car. We managed to pay the school fees, so things have improved a bit.
Oh, I must tell you a story. Speaking of only one car, so one of our family friends, she was in a hurry and her car was getting really hot, so she drove in quickly at this place and she asked the guy. It wasn't a garage or anything. She just asked like one of the people who was there working, "Oh, please quickly put some water into the car because it's overheating." And then she ran into the shop to get something, and when she came out, she started the car and it just went boom. And the guy put water into the oil instead of, So she doesn't have a car at the moment either. Can you imagine how frustrating that is?
No, but hang on.
Who did she trust? Who is this person that she asked?
Who put the water in the oil?
This guy who she asked this dude. He's from Malawi or whatever, and she said to him, "Just put some water in." But he, instead of putting the water into the water thing in the bonnet, he put it in straight into the engine in the oil compartment. So you imagine what that did.
I think she made the mistake of selecting somebody who doesn't actually work at the petrol station. Like you're
Yeah,
probably
you
Well,
said
it
it
was.
wasn't at the petrol station,
It
right?
wasn't at a petrol station, but she just thought she assumed that people would know the difference between the water and the oil input, so
Ah,
she didn't know what
oh
to do.
no, no, you know the
mm-mm.
No.
assumption is the mother of all mistakes. Wow.
You know,
Well, this is
I
it.
was
And
with
now, apparently, hold on, it's going to cost like 92,000 rand to fix that or something.
Well,
And it's not even
insurance,
a fancy. It's not a fancy car. I don't know if insurance will pay because,
I
it's
don't think.
kind of it's negligence. No, I don't think they will.
Mm.
Wow, that's horrific.
You
Yeah.
What
know,
happens?
while I was in Durban a few weeks ago, I was with a friend who needed to jumpstart the car. And just seeing what a bonnet or like the inside of a bonnet looks like these days, that is a whole contraption.
Mm.
I wouldn't
Yeah,
trust
yeah.
anyone who's in a professional with something like that. There's screws and bolts, and then when you have jumper cables on, supposedly you have to start with one particular side. Otherwise, if you start with another, the whole thing could go up in flames. That is not something you leave someone with as you
Well,
casually go to the
I
shops.
don't want. But the thing is, in an ideal utopian world, wouldn't it be
yeah.
amazing if we or you and I we knew everything about cars? It would be such a life skill. It would help tremendously if you knew as much as a mechanic knew. Just imagine.
Well, but this
Your
is the
life-
thing, right? These days, you don't actually have a mechanic who works on these things because, for example, my sister bought a new car in 2019, so it's a very new car, right? And these new models, she asked after about a week, she realized like she didn't have a service book in her car, and so she phoned the dealership that she bought it from, and they said what model, what year. So she told them, and it was 2019, and the woman started laughing. She said, "Oh no, those cars don't have a manual, a service book anymore. It's all electronic. So
Wow.
it stores it on the computer in the car, and you couldn't. I mean, you wouldn't know how to fix anything in that car. You would need like a computer to attach to it. That's the only way to kind of get into the innards of it. So it's now almost like mechanics have to also be masters of IT and almost like electrical engineers more than they are mechanics.
Yes,
that's an amazing development.
Yes, but isn't that also generally speaking mainly for more high-end kind of cars? Like a
Well-
Schlenzer like me that's going to get a car, it'll still be your normal car with an engine without computers.
A who like you? A Schenter.
Schlenzer.
What's a
Schlenzer.
Schlinter?
Well, the direct translation of Schlenzer, it's a Yiddish word. If you find a fault in a diamond, that fault is called a Schlenzer. But if you use it as an attribute towards a person's character, that person is a Schlenzer. Like it's a bit of also a self-deprecating kind of term where you say I'm a Schlenzer, or you can say that Schlenzer. You know.
I love that. I didn't know about the diamond thing. That's a great explanation. You see, we're learning new things.
You know, when you have very elderly parents, you know these things. These things are getting lost. You know, it's a dying language. Yeah. Funnily enough, it's not a dying language. Funnily enough, there's actually places now in South Africa where you can learn Yiddish. They're trying to keep it alive. But in terms of it actually being like there's no Yiddish newspapers kind of thing or Yiddish books, generally speaking, anymore. But they're trying to revive Yiddish. But did you actually know that before the state of Israel was founded in 1948, Hebrew was actually a dead language? Hebrew was not spoken as a daily language anymore. Did you know that?
Really?
It was used as a language. No, it was used as a language in prayer, in the prayer books, in the Siddur and the Torah. It was used as a language. But as an everyday daily language, it had died. So they made Hebrew.
70 odd years ago.
They made Hebrew the official language of Israel. You know,
that's pretty amazing. I didn't know that, and I'm always amazed when people are able to find these old languages. Like I found a clip on YouTube the other day from a movie where they decided to do some real historical research, and they made the Romans in this movie. They made these Romans speak ancient Latin the way it would have sounded in
Oh.
14 AD or whatever. That's
Well, that
pretty
Nobel
amazing to hear.
laureate, well, that Nobel laureate Mel Gibson, when he did that movie,
Yes,
what was that
Aramaic.
movie?
Yeah.
They did Aramaic, and you had to do a lot of reading. Passion of the Christ.
That's
You had to
it.
do a lot of reading in that movie, and there was a lot of blood and the sweat and the that was hectic.
I haven't thought about that movie in a while, and what a big hoopla it did and made in the Christian community.
Well, we all remember because that was the same time where Gareth got into trouble on radio. He made a thing about Jesus at the same time, and then he was brought to the USA. Yeah, so that makes it all.
I distinctly remember yes, and that was the problem. I remember listening to that.
What's interesting now in Brazil, in the south of Brazil, they're trying to build a new Christ that's going to be bigger than the one in Rio de Janeiro. And I think to myself, it's 2021. Let's just acknowledge or admit or try and see that we don't really. Christ didn't necessarily look like that.
Yeah.
So they're building this new one, but come on, let's.
Christ would have looked like a Sephardic Jew.
Basically, he probably was a Sephardic Jew. I mean, he stayed at home until he was 36. He worked for his father. That's a very old joke. Very old joke. Please forgive me. Please forgive me.
Oh man.
Out of that one now.
Yeah.
All right. So here are a couple of points on the car situation. Ruth says, this is Ruth who argues with Damon regularly. Gareth, wait, was this not a garage? Why was this not a garage? People need to stop making assumptions. There's a lesson in that. Yeah. All right. Well, that's all good and well after the fact, Ruth, but you might have thought people might know things as well. Tracy says it should be a subject at school. Life skills, how to do tax, how to do a CV, how to change a tire, how to know the difference between different venomous snakes, what to do when there's an earthquake. I agree with you. I think there should be a subject like that. Instead, we make kids learn useless stuff at school.
Well, the last earthquake in South Africa was, I think, in Tulbagh in 1965. So maybe the earthquake isn't too much of a concern in South Africa.
Yeah, but in places where it is, you need to know to stand in the doorway rather than hide under a flimsy table. People have got to know. You see, I even know that, and I don't live in an earthquake area. Like, if you feel tremors and you live in a country where there are like massive tectonic events, then you need to know to stand in a doorway. That's the safest place to be.
I wonder if that's still up to date. I wonder whether that particular doorway advice is still relevant, because sometimes you have advice from 40, 50 years ago and it hasn't been updated, and maybe the doorways aren't built at the same quality like they used to be built. We need to consider that as well, eh?
I mean, 70 to 75 years ago, when nuclear war between USA and Russia was a big issue on people's minds, they used to tell school kids, if the nuclear signal, if the emergency alarm for the nuclear thing goes off, you must just get under your desks and cover your head. Like, that's going to help you.
Oh, exactly.
You want tickets at that point.
Wait for the flash.
Yeah. Lenice says, old cars were so much easier. I learned a lot about cars back then. I could run start my own car. Just had to park on a starter hill. Yeah, I remember that, when you could run start a car. You can't do that, I don't think, with a lot of these new ones. Harold says, what car is it? 92K sounds too much coming from a mechanic, unless it's a Land Rover or a high-performance engine. It's not a fancy car at all. That's what she was told. But I suppose maybe she should do what Damon did with his daughter and get a second opinion on her teeth. Get a second opinion on the engine of the car, which has been ruined by the water in the oil opening.
Well, the thing is, nowadays it's a bit of a racket. You buy a new car and you get the 5-year warranty, so you got to take the car to the official dealership. But then nowadays you go to these mechanics who work from home, and if you get a good one, that they're a hell of a lot cheaper. Yeah.
Tracy just wants to mechanic who works from home. Yeah, you get those. You get mechanics who've got like a garage with all the equipment that they need in it. Tracy says there was an earthquake in Cape Town in January, Damon. So just to update your records.
Yes, Tracy. Yes, but not an official one where bridges were falling down. It happened a couple of 100 kilometers off the coast, like near Al Gullis, and there was just tremors felt. It was
Al Gullis. What is it? What is Al Gullis?
Four on the Richter. It was 4 on the Richter scale.
What's Al Gullis?
Al Gullis. Al Gullis.
Al Gullis. Cape Agullis.
Cape Agullis.
Al Gullis.
Okay, settle down.
Sorry, I like
No,
that. It's one of your things. It's like when CS, who used to do our sport, what did we get him to say that word that he got wrong? McKine. That's right.
But
I said to him,
but there was a trick to it. We tricked him. I can't remember the trick.
The trick was that I said to him, read the following things. So I held up a sign that said McDonald. So he read it. So then I made him read, "Hey Alexa." Alexa's talking to you.
Alexa, don't worry, you're just on YouTube, not serious.
So I'm sorry to hear about your teeth, Alexa.
Gareth said he's sorry to hear about your teeth. Okay, tell mommy to do your lunch. I can't do your lunch. She wants me to do her lunch. Please wake her up and do the lunch. And don't forget the other medication, the antibiotic. Remind your mother and wake her up.
So what we did is we held up a thing that said McDonald. So he went McDonald. Then we held up one that said McGillis. So he read McGillis. And then we put up one that said McHine. And instead of saying machine, he said McHine.
Yeah.
So we did trick him. And it was very good, though. All right. So, Damon, while we're talking about and reminiscing about the good old days, I had some very funny things. We've got a group. I've got a group with Damon and Leigh-Ann and Mabali and Thabo and CS. And
but Thabo's never there.
Thabo, well, he never really. He'll comment occasionally, but not a lot. He never commented in real life that much either, if you recall. So
it's true to character.
Yeah, Tabo's at least consistent. But do you remember when they gave us those SABC towels? There was an anti-corruption week at the SABC, and they actually gave us as a corporate gift. They gave everybody on the staff these towels. Let me show you what they looked like, because I mean this is hilarious. So you can see that. And I found mine the other day, and of course I use it as a hand towel in the guest bathroom. I think it's hilarious because it says
"Wash away fraud and corruption."
Yes.
Sure. And then what does
it says? Wash away fraud and corruption, and then it gives the number for whistleblowers, and it says anti-fraud and corruption week. It was what year? 2010 or 2012 or something.
I think it says 2013. Wasn't 2013 the most corrupt week, or the most corrupt year of all the years?
Right. That's right. I mean, I think that was a very bad year for them. But isn't that hilarious? The SABC have issued this towel in the year 2013 for us all, so that we could wash away all the dirty, filthy corruption from our hands. Isn't that brilliant?
I'm almost sure that was Cloudy Musaneng's one of his years.
No, he wasn't.
Cloudy was there the last 2 years. We left in 2014. Cloudy was there. I remember.
I don't know that he was in charge though, because he was there, but he wasn't important yet. I mean, he was. He wasn't like.
Right.
Yeah.
No, you're right. He became CEO, or more important, I think shortly after we left, and then he made them do 90% local music. That was funny.
That's hilarious. So I don't know what they give out as corporate gifts now. I can't imagine they give anything. But I just thought it was so funny. Like, what? Who was sitting in a meeting? Because that must have, to issue one of those to every member of staff, and there were thousands of people who worked at the SABC. It must have cost them a huge amount of money. So you imagine the meeting where they were all sitting there, and someone went, "You know what I'm thinking? I'm thinking we should hand out towels with wash away fraud and corruption on them."
Great idea.
Incredible.
Sign it off. Thousands of towels we go. And what a moving and inspiring message that is.
And did anything else come with the towel? Maybe a little bit, a bar of soap? Nothing like that.
I can't remember. I don't remember now, but that must have been massive, like fraud and corruption itself, because in order to make, I reckon that the people who made those charged 10 times what they cost to make the towels. And therefore, in Fraud and Corruption Week, there was like someone scalping money off the top because they were making these towels at a huge profit, and thousands of them. It's just so clever. It's so, I mean, you know, crooks will always find a way. Hey, never underestimate the crook.
What a place!
And the fact that you still have that towel though is funny.
Yeah, I think it's hilarious. So when people, because I put it out when I know someone with a sense of humor is coming to visit, and I leave it in the guest bathroom, and then invariably they'll wash their hands and go like, "That towel is hilarious," and I'll say to them, "It was a real thing." Yes. They were being serious. They weren't joking when they gave that to us. So Damon, we have this group that I mentioned earlier, and it kind of comes to life every now and then, and it's hilarious when it does, and then it goes away for a while because like we're not all talking to each other all the time, but It is funny. And you and Leigh-Ann actually made friends the last time you were on there.
It was quite remarkable.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether I've been set up or not. She said,
no.
Damon, I think we could actually be good pen pals. We must never meet or be in contact with each other or be in the same room. But I've always admired your intellect, but as long as I'm not in your space, I think we could be good pen pals.
Okay.
And then I thought, who makes the first move? You know, I'm worried that I'm gonna send her something. Hello, Leigh-Ann, and then she'll say, "Hey, no, I was just joking, you durst. God, you're desperate pathetic." And then I actually forgot about it.
Because
you're so needy. Get a life.
By my recollection, you don't really have an issue with Leigh-Ann, Damon. It's just the fact that somehow everything you do and say annoys her.
Yeah, I'm just scared it's gonna backfire. She's gonna explode at me, or I send a message and she totally ignores me. Because the thing is, I've wished her happy birthday on social media, and she's never responded. But which isn't necessarily an indication. No, you don't always get a response like so and so liked your happy birthday greeting. But she's not really that active on social media, I suppose.
No, she used to be, but I mean, like a lot of us, it's not our favorite place to hang out anymore. You're on Twitter a lot, huh? Apparently you called Sia because there was this horrible story yesterday in the news, and we've got to get to headlines, but this is worth throwing in just before the headlines. There's this old gogo, and her surname happens to be Sangweni, and she's not related to Sia, but I thought the same thing. Anyway, she had dementia, and she was set upon by these two criminals, and I think they burnt her to death. It was here in Johannesburg. It was horrible, horrible story. But apparently you sent the story to Sia, and then afterwards, before, like you should have maybe asked this beforehand, but you sent the story to him, and then afterwards, after you guys had been talking about it, Sia says to me, you eventually said, "Oh my God, Sangweni, I hope she's not related to you," and that wasn't insensitive.
Not entirely. I said, I hope this isn't. Is this a relative? And then 5 minutes later, I hope not, because we actually did have an incident at 5FM some years ago where there was a guy with a psychiatric problem. He had an axe, and he literally butchered 2 or 3 people to death. I think he actually beheaded them like King Henry VIII with Anne Boleyn.
That's right, in Pretoria. Yeah,
his surname was the same as Poppy's in Shongwana. Yes. So live on air. I joked, I hope it's not a relative. I wonder if it's a relative of Poppy's. True's God, it was a relative. Yeah. So then we got an email. I think they sent the management sent the email to you, and then you forwarded it to me. And Poppy's upset. Will you, Damon, just send an apology? So I sent an apology. Yada yada yada. And
one would have thought that would have been your lesson.
Well, you know what?
I'm sorry. He's just done it again, by the way. Yes. He's just done it again. You've learned nothing.
I should have gone with it a little, going, yes, that's my aunt, and we're attending her funeral this Saturday.
Sure. I wonder what would you have said? Alexa's back.
Alexa's back. What do you say?
Oh,
it's a teaspoon. She got to be on antibiotics now. It's a teaspoon of moxicillin.
Are you the primary
No studio,
parent?
no studio etiquette, hey?
No, are you the primary parent?
I think so, hey? I think so.
Oh,
Yeah,
you're
it's turned
what?
out that way.
What do they call it? The primary caregiver or something, right?
I think I am, yes.
Oh, all right.
Yes.
Well done. I mean, that's who
I
knew you would be so responsible.
said to Alexa, listen, Alexa, mommy's taking you to the bus stop tomorrow because I'm going to be on
Yeah.
Gareth's show. She says, oh, it's going to be a disaster. She
knows exactly what she's talking about. All right, I want to get on to some other stuff, and I know Damon and Sia have got a bunch of things on their agenda too, but we've got to talk about some of the headlines this morning. So let's take a quick look at those. First of all, Eskom has warned of a constrained power grid. Oh, surprise, surprise! How is this even news? These guys are, we just know that at some point we're going to have power problems, and the country's been saddled with stage 2 blackouts between 9 p.m. last night and 5 a.m. this morning, with the utility blaming a shortage of generation capacity. So I know I didn't have my lights off because I've got that light in my bedroom that comes on after load shedding. So I know when there has been load shedding. It was just wired strangely, I suppose, when the electrician put it in. If there's been load shedding, it comes on. So I know if I've had load shedding, and clearly it didn't affect my neighborhood last night.
Well, I discovered a tragic, terrible thing about load shedding, which I never knew about. My IT guy that comes and fixes our computers, he informs me that our lovely 18,000 Rand iMac, its hard drive is on the blink. It's about to break down. So I say to him, how does that happen? He says to me, well, if you don't log out properly, if you don't shut down properly. So guess what? It's because of load shedding that my computer, I didn't know that. I am so upset. I am so upset. But what's worse is we're on a prepaid meter as well. So that's also a disaster. We wait until our electricity goes off. Big mistake. You got to
I've got one of those old iMacs as well, and it's the same thing. It's not working properly anymore, and that explains. You've just explained my problem without me even knowing it. So that's irritating.
Apparently, it's about 4,000 Rand for a new hard drive, and only one company will actually install. You can't get somebody to do it for you. You got to go to a certain place. I can't remember their names, and it'll cost 4 or 5 grand. But maybe it's worth it. I don't know. Anyway,
it is said that 3 generating unions tripped at the aging power plant, while 3 others had not yet returned to service as planned. It's just such a mess at Eskom. It really is. They said they're working to bring them back online, promised to keep the country informed of any significant changes in the grid. I will say that they have become a little bit better about letting people know when the electricity is going to go off. They warn us a little bit now.
Well, they're very experienced.
They gave us like 2 hours yesterday. I don't think that's absolutely amazing.
Okay, well, I'm trying to look for a silver lining, and you guys are not helping me.
Very difficult to find one.
Yeah.
When they use the term aging power station, I'm thinking aging power station. I mean, like you got to throw in some Salusa 45.
The South African Poultry Association has on Tuesday confirmed a bird flu outbreak. The outbreak of H5 avian influenza has been established at a chicken farm in the East Rand in Gauteng. The association's Isak Breitenbach said that the situation was being contained on one farm and was closely being monitored. We've had a positive influenza outcome yesterday. I don't know if he sounds like that. I'm just assuming. We do not know if it is a high pathogenic influenza or a low pathogenic influenza. But that's great news. While we're already dealing with coronavirus, now we have to have H5 bird flu.
So all these birds wearing masks?
Well, exactly.
Can you imagine?
No, I can't imagine it, really. Especially little yellow chickens.
You can't do social distancing with a huge amount of chickens, eh?
No, definitely not. The state capture inquiry will now issue a summons to compel Norma Ngoma to testify. Ngoma is the former finance minister, Malusi Gigaba's wife, and she has withdrawn her participation. Now, she was gung-ho. She was ready to testify in front of the State Capture Commission. She was excited to do it. She was going to tell us about the bags of money that Malusi Gigaba used to go to the Guptas and receive. the suits that he would buy. She was going to give us the inside track, Norma. And now she's suddenly pulled out. She's decided she doesn't want to talk after all.
Yeah.
She was due to give evidence yesterday, and her attorney has read a letter to the commission explaining why she decided not to testify.
Well, we all thought that she wanted the limelight, chance for attention.
Yeah.
Maybe her attorney advised her.
Yeah, I think they found that maybe she might be implicating herself in something. Which
she definitely will.
Right at the
maybe the wanking will come up. You never know. It could be embarrassing.
The wanking. It could be the wanking. You're right.
There was that video that went out to see her. You look a bit puzzled, and he was choking the chicken, milking the goose, whatever the expression is.
Yeah.
I don't think that's very important to the state capture inquiry,
exactly.
as opposed to where the money lies.
Yes, but it's like you got to show your face in public after that came out. It's like, Yeah.
That was when they were having that very public spat. Remember, she found out he was cheating just like the rest of us did, and those text messages and all the pictures and all the video came out. It was very embarrassing. Anyway, turns out that she needs to be compelled to give evidence, so she's going to be forced to appear before the State Capture Commission. Anyway, you can't tell the State Capture Commission, I'm coming, and then let them down. They will force you.
So is she going to be on the phone with Zuma this morning, or Jacob Zuma's lawyers, to get advice? How do I not appear? Kind of, that kind of thing.
She's got her own lawyers, and I don't think she's got any chance of not appearing. By the way, Jacob Zuma lost an important case this week where he now has to pay his own legal fees. We don't have to pay his legal fees, which is great news. Some 16 million rand it has cost him.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money. So there's another headline that you could be pleased about this morning, is you don't have to pay his legal fees. Joe Biden is going to address the U.S. Congress to mark his first 100 days in office. It will not technically be a State of the Union address, but he's going to deliver a speech to a joint session of Congress to explain how they're making progress with his administration, how they're dealing with the coronavirus pandemic, their economic woes, all this trillions and trillions of dollars that they've been borrowing. So he said he's going to make an address on the 28th of April to talk about the challenges and opportunities of what he calls this historic moment. So I'm sure you can't wait.
Do you think he'll advertise? Does anybody want to adopt these 40,000 Mexican children? Maybe he'll put up a big board. Do you want these children? Because they can't find the parents.
Maybe he'll just release them from the cages that he's put them in. Who knows? But that's a good point, Damon. Maybe he should be forced to do something about them. Anyway, the defense has begun for Officer Derek Chauvin in the murder trial of George Floyd. The George Floyd murder, which has been on TV. I must be honest with you, I haven't watched a lot of it. And I'm not into these trials. I never really watched the OJ one. I never really watched the Oscar one every day. I mean, it was in the news, so you couldn't avoid it. But I'm not really one for the detail of these trials. It's one of the reasons I didn't become I didn't want to become a lawyer for that reason. I don't find it all that compelling.
I was glued to it like the first 1 or 2 days, but then after that I lost interest. It got a bit much, because to me it's an open and shut case, but they're dragging it out.
How can you say it's an open and shut case? Explain. Like, what do you know that the rest of us don't? Why does the judge and the judge and the jury, why do they have to go through all of this when you know already what the outcome must be?
That was hyperbole. It was an exaggeration. But to me, obviously, I'm not a lawyer. Obviously, I'm not an expert. I'm just a layman. It just feels that it's a very obvious case. He was murdered, and they're just dragging it out like a lot more than I imagined they would drag it out. It's like they're really going to intricate details. Like they had a paramedic. They had this witness who happened to be a qualified fire person, but she also has some paramedic qualifications. And when she started testifying, they spent about half an hour discussing her qualifications. It just drags on, and you think to yourself, "Whoa, these lawyers are obviously getting paid per hour." It just really drags. I just didn't realize how much it would drag on for. That's what I'm trying to say. To me, it's obvious he was murdered. That's all I'm saying.
But you know what murder? You do know what murder is, right? I mean, murder is It's killing someone with intent, where you're found to have done so without any reasonable doubt.
Okay.
There cannot be any reasonable doubt. So, are you still sure that you think this is an open and shut case, and you think this is an easy one to?
No. There's obviously I get your point. Maybe culpable homicide, but in America they call it manslaughter. Perhaps manslaughter is more suitable in this case. But if you watch the video, I suppose manslaughter is more appropriate. But we'll see.
And you don't find it interesting that he had 3 times the lethal dose of fentanyl in his system at the time, and that there are videos of him behaving very strangely just before the arrest when he was in that shop. You don't think that's relevant? I mean, that's not relevant?
Completely irrelevant, sure. It's relevant to a tiny, tiny degree. You can't sit on someone's neck for 9.5 minutes. It's as simple as that. And people are shouting, he can't breathe, he's not moving. And the policeman just didn't care. They didn't give a shit. But what's
you don't
also
think it was you don't think it was interesting that he was shouting "I can't breathe" before he was even under the policeman's knee? I'm not saying that this Derek Chauvin didn't do the wrong thing. I mean, I do believe that he probably did the wrong thing, but is he guilty of murder? You see, these things do matter, Damon.
That's why I'm leaning more towards manslaughter, which we call culpable homicide in South Africa. Let me just shuckle the antibiotic bottle while we anyway, yeah. That's
By the way, for anybody who's listening and doesn't know what's going on, Damon is currently administering antibiotic to his daughter. She's come into the room a few times. She's had to ask him to help make her lunch. So he's the primary caregiver. So
in the fridge.
And now he's currently telling her where everything must go. And I can't believe how big she is, Damon. She's gotten she's grown up so quickly.
She'll be 9 on the 21st. Please forgive our poor studio etiquette, or in this case,
that's fine.
Study/dining room etiquette.
Right, I got you.
Yeah.
So Carl says, peeling the cucumber. I think we must now submit all variants of masturbation euphemism, because there were a couple of masturbation euphemisms that Damon used earlier. Choking the chicken, I think, was the one you used, Damon. So Carl says, how about peeling the cucumber? He says that's also a good one. He likes using that.
I've never heard that.
I haven't either. Okay.
Many years ago, I heard butter your millie.
Yes. Now, I don't know if you heard about this. By the way, Chris T says, again, Damon is a walking encyclopedia of wrong facts.
Oh, wow.
Amazing. Just quickly, Damon, while we're talking about all these coronavirus related things, because we were earlier, you see that they've pulled out the Johnson & Johnson vaccine from circulation.
What a bunch of idiots.
You think they're idiots?
Absolute arseholes. 6 cases of clotting in 6.8 million doses. Absolutely insane. It doesn't make any sense. Also, the coronavirus itself causes clotting in a lot of cases as well. That's what kills people half the time. Second of all, they need to examine those 6 cases. Maybe it was women between the ages of 18 and 45. Maybe they were on hormone replacement therapy. Maybe they weren't healthy in the first place with clotting. I've got clotting problems, for crying in a bucket. Really? No, it doesn't make any sense. It's silly. And now the health minister, Leigh-Ann Damon, says we need to do some further studies. You don't need to do further studies. It's there. 6 cases of clotting in 6.8 million doses.
But Damon, weren't you one of the people who said at the beginning of coronavirus, one person who dies is too many?
Yeah, I did say that.
Okay, so now suddenly now if someone 6 and 6 million people.
You can't be dogmatic. You got to be prepared. You got to be flexible. You got to. But
hang on. No, when I said to you all those months ago that the number of people who are going to die from this thing is going to be much, much smaller than they predict, you were like, no, but one life is too many, and you can't say that, and you've got to care about people's health. That was why we locked down, isn't it? Didn't we lock down because all of these people were going to die, all 50,000 of them?
No, Gareth. There's an exception to everything. You're giving an example of a scenario This is a different scenario. It's apples and pears. It's not the same thing. There's always an exception. In this particular case, six people out of 6.8 million doses. It's far less. Is far smaller than what would happen if people didn't take the dose. It's as simple as that.
And you accept that 94% of all the people who died of COVID had other diseases and comorbidities as well, right?
I don't know that for a fact, but that is a possibility.
It's very, very likely. And in fact, the statistics would bear me out on that. But, one life's too many. I'm just going to hold you to your own standard. That's all. You were the one who said that.
Yes, but there are exceptions. Look, I can also bring up things that you've said in the past. I'm not going to bring up. You said it's nothing worse than the flu.
Ooh.
You said it's nothing worse than the flu.
I think I was right in terms of the numbers.
It's 25 times more deadly than the flu. So come on.
With these,
the other day you said that doctors aren't bothering to wear masks anymore. I mean, come on. Hey, you gave me a front.
Woo! I don't know. I have forgot.
You need to
Damon
leave now.
Sports is back.
All
right.
The bus is arriving. You've got to go now. Sorry.
Ay. Ruth is saying, Gareth, do you need help? I think she means with dealing with Damon this morning. No, I think I'll be all right. Anyway.
So, do you know that Ruth has her own podcast? It's on YouTube.
I didn't. Everyone has a podcast, right?
It's called Rebellious Ruth. And she says a lot of people enjoy her podcast. Okay,
well, good for you.
Yeah.
Very, very good. All right. So, Damon, I don't know if you've ever done this, but I need to ask you because I've now seen enough of these things online to really have. I reckon we need a law against them. I'm talking about.
Switch off the lights.
Ay.
She switched off the lights.
This Bernice.
He could have muted himself.
What happened, Damon? What happened?
Bernice switches off the lights. Can you believe it?
Yeah, but she doesn't care about anyone but herself.
Shit, in this particular case. Yeah, unbelievable. Sorry about that.
Yeah, your wife. I mean, listen, I don't know how you manage. I really don't. So what I want to talk about is these gender reveal parties. Someone was killed the other day in America because in this gender reveal thing, they always have. Well, they've started fires. You remember last year there was a story about a fire that started in California because someone had some gender reveal party and it ended up setting fire to the open plot next door. They had fireworks of a certain color. And then the whole mountain burnt down and like someone's house burnt down, all because they wanted to reveal that they were going to have a boy or a girl, or I don't even remember what it was. And there was a news story just 2 weeks ago about someone who was about to light a firework to reveal whether or not they were going to have a boy or a girl. And it ended up going off in their face and they ended up dying from burn injuries. I really think we should ban these. Nobody, even the parents, don't care as much about this stuff as everybody thinks they do. And you know what? You're going to find out anyway. It's not like it's going to stay a surprise forever. I think these gender reveals are stupid.
Is it a thing in South Africa, really?
Oh, I've seen a few of them. I was complaining about someone I know with a gender reveal. You should have seen this gender reveal. It's mostly for the girls. I don't know that the guys are really into it. It's just another excuse for the girls to get together and celebrate, being pregnant and having a kid. And, that's praiseworthy. I mean, I don't have a problem with that, but then just have a party. You don't need to have a gender reveal where you have, all the decorations are of a certain color and, you've got like ribbons up every tree on the driveway and you have blue smoke and you have balloons and you have a lilo in the pool of a particular color. I mean, it's just a waste of money. It's just outrageous.
Somebody sent us a video. So this lady, this woman, she's pregnant. She videoed her husband, and she did a gender reveal, kind of jumping through the hoops thing with him, where he had to open a box and read the instructions and do this and do that. And eventually, he opened it up, and it said a girl or a boy, and I could just see he was
disappointed.
No,
Oh,
not
no.
disappointed. I could just see he's thinking to himself, what the hell did I marry? What? I could see he was unimpressed. It's just,
So was
just
he
be grateful
unimpressed? He was unimpressed by the whole show that she put on.
about the whole
Yeah.
show. Just be grateful you have a baby and it's healthy, and just it's not important. The gender is not important, really, man. Pull yourself
I
together.
mean, if it isn't harming anyone, or if it isn't
Somebody was killed. Hello,
inconveniencing
a house was
anyone,
burnt down.
okay.
Yeah, what Gareth was saying. He said a house was burnt down and a man was
May
killed.
I complete my sentence? If it isn't harming anyone, if it isn't inconveniencing anyone, then go for gold. Do that, Gareth. I think those things that you were complaining about are cute.
I
Put
think you're always
something in
gonna
the
harm.
tree and put something in the pool. And if you don't want to go, and if you think it's annoying, then don't attend or don't
I
do
think
it.
you're gonna
But
harm.
let
I
other
think you're
people
gonna
do it.
harm somebody. I think you're gonna harm somebody and annoy somebody every time. I think. Yeah,
How
definitely.
so?
Well, I saw a very
feel
fun. Listen to this. There's this hilarious picture going around of this really funny gender reveal, and the woman and her very preppy white husband are standing next to each other, and one of their black friends, who's a guy, is standing just behind her, and then she lights the thing, and then it ends up being black smoke, and then the black friend is like, oh, because it's his kid that's coming, not the white guy's kid. But no, that would be funny. I'd go to that gender reveal. That would be funny. Not a gender reveal, a race reveal.
Or you,
Yes.
or you jump on the husband and you cable time and you put your knee on the back of his neck and you say, boy or girl,
Jesus.
boy or girl. And then he says, I can't breathe, I don't care. You're gonna find out what gender your child was. Hey,
well, I keep thinking, like, maybe if they'd had a race reveal for Meghan Markle's child, then maybe we wouldn't have all this shit with Oprah and the interview and Prince Philip dying and Harry having to go back. I mean, if they just brought out like a color chart and placed bets on what shade of white or brown Meghan's baby might be,
You watched Suits. You watched Suits, the show that Meghan Markle was on, right?
Yeah, I watched.
Did you even know back then that she was Exactly.
No.
Did you know that Herschel Gibbs apparently wasn't white? Did you even know that?
No. Damon, you've gone quiet. I don't know what's happened to you. You've muted yourself.
You know what? I muted myself. So while I was exasperating, and I hit the mouse, and the mouse was on mute. Got to be careful about that. Yeah, sorry about that. It's just like, we don't even, if the person doesn't even look black, why even go there? Really?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, to some people, it's really important. And I love the way it's always like, like Barack Obama's a black guy, even though one of his parents is as white as, a Norwegian.
He does look black, at least.
Yes, but what I'm saying is he never chooses to identify as white, despite being half of each.
Yeah, but he looks dark.
You know what I mean?
No, but he looks
but
dark.
This is the.
So there you go.
But what I'm saying is, if white is the privileged one that everybody says gets good treatment, and black is the one that's always oppressed, why do people who are mixed race always, if they could identify, like Meghan Markle could have identified as white, and we wouldn't have known any of this bullshit? Why didn't she?
Well,
you would think.
Well,
you remember during apartheid, like there were a lot of people who were mixed race who had themselves registered, or they chose to identify, or the government classified them as white. And there used to be huge things in families because some members of the family were darker than other members of the family. I mean, we've talked about this on the show before.
Well, the thing is, I don't know the history 100% accurately, but we don't actually know for sure back in the day when Meghan Markle was just an actress in Hollywood, what she identified herself as. Do we know? I don't know. But in the case of Barack Obama, you can't escape the fact that he doesn't look white. So he has to identify himself as black because people would have laughed at him.
Yeah, I know. But what I'm saying is, like, he could these days. I mean, Rachel Dolezal. Do you remember that woman? She was a white woman who chose to identify as a black person, and she made a mockery of the whole thing. But she herself has all kinds of mental health issues.
She was a lunatic.
Yeah, but I'm saying
I still stand by. She's not a lunatic. She's I'll back her until the cows come home and until
Oh,
I
really?
go blue in the face.
Sia,
Absolutely.
didn't
She
you
was the
try to?
head of the NAACP in her
How,
district.
how
Yeah.
she pulled
She's
that
down
off
with the
is
black.
just
Yeah.
amazing.
So
Absolutely
Sia,
amazing.
didn't you try to get her for an interview for the show?
Tried to get her for an interview on the show, tried to go to her talk when she was in the country, tried to
Yes.
reach her through her website and through Netflix with the documentary. I bought her book. I think I'm one of 17 people who still own that book. Look, it has a prized place in my bookshelf. Rachel, I still back her.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, Annika
Wow.
agrees with me about these reveal parties. She says, I don't know why they have these reveal parties. These people were probably convinced their kids that they're trans when they're not. Well, that's another thing is like, if if your kid is revealed to be a girl and then like 10 years later they identify as a boy or whatever, because that's happening more and more in America at the moment, then, are they going to be upset with the parents for having had a gender reveal in the first place? Because those same parents, if they really are politically correct, they shouldn't assign a gender to their kid. You know what I mean?
Oi, this whole thing with not assigning genders and not
crazy,
using
right?
certain pronouns. Whoa, people
Yeah.
have flipped their lids, eh? People have flipped
Yeah.
their lids.
I'm afraid it's
Unbelievable.
gone crazy. Yeah.
Sure.
All right. Well, it's 7:00 already. We'll come back with a whole lot more. I've got some emails I want to get to just now. We're going to speak to Sean Sanders at Revix just now about what's going on with Bitcoin is flying. $64,000 a Bitcoin this morning. It's just unreal. Anybody who didn't buy when we were telling you to buy some, even at the beginning of this year, you're going to be kicking yourself because the rise in price is just extraordinary. And a lot of people are saying it's going to go up. People who know way more than me are saying it's going to go up to 100,000 to more, even more than that before the end of this year. So let's see what happens. Okay, lots of good stuff to come. CliffCentral.com. Stick around. We got Damon Calvari with us. We've got Sia Sangweni. We've got you and me. And there's plenty on the way. Stick around. Just because it's about technology, connecting your business to the rest of the world doesn't mean you need to send rockets to space and use complicated solutions. Want to simplicate things? Well, join Jaco Voigt, who is the CEO of Catalytic, on the Unbundled podcast. With skin in the game and a keen focus on educating and assisting you and your business, Jaco decodes all the aspects of connectivity, security, and cloud solutions. Unbundled is brought to you by Catalytic and is available on cliffcentral.com, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
That girl is a shooting star. You're wishing on, you're wishing. That girl is a neon heart. You're switching on, you're switching in your mind.
We live in a rapidly changing world, but how we get paid remains stubbornly outdated.
We have this archaic payday cycle.
The Future of Pay is a podcast series that explores the impact, that the current salary status quo has on South Africans.
When you are desperate, you will do anything to get that money to put food on your table for your family by tomorrow evening.
And how innovative startup SmartWage is looking to change
There's
things.
a very simple problem here. People are waiting till the end of the month to get paid, and the impact is that they can't afford expenses that come up during the middle of the month.
The Future of Pay, brought to you by SmartWage, available on cliffcentral.com, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. All right, cliffcentral.com. On Wednesday morning, we have plenty to talk about today. I mean, which week haven't we? Thank God. We've never had a week where we got here and we didn't have anything to say. So today is no different. We've got Damon Calvari with us. How's it, Damon?
Yes,
Good
good morning.
And yeah, listen, I noticed Sia found a story. And by the way, I did use the break now while we were just switching podcasts to look up some data just to fight with you, because I like to fight with you occasionally.
No, but we normally leave it until 10 to 8. We only do it the last week.
Here it is. Ioannidis, who's the doctor at Stanford, has calculated that it is the same as the flu, the coronavirus. Apparently, it has killed just as many people as the flu, 0.15%, same as flu. Of course, coronavirus is, everything has risks. So if you're an old person or you're fat, you need to get the vaccine. But for everyone else, it's the same risk as flu. So I think you owe me an apology, considering that's. Unless you want to argue with the guy from Stanford,
Yeah,
you go ahead.
I don't care where he's from. I don't care where he's from. You look at the amount of cases and you look at the amount of deaths and you work out the percentage. When COVID
That's
first
precisely
came out,
what I'm talking about here. That's exactly what I've just given you.
When COVID first came around a year ago, or in March last year, the mortality rate was about 6.5%. Now it's gone down to about 3.6%. Flu, the general flu, is 0.1% mortality rate.
But we're not talking about mortality rate here. I'm saying the total number of people.
I'm talking about mortality rate.
I'm saying the number of people who've been affected by it is the same as the flu. In other words, the number of deaths in a given year. And remember, there've been how many deaths by flu in the last year, Damon? According to CDC data.
No, I haven't looked at
Zero.
that. I just looked
Zero. You don't find that a little bit suspicious?
Yes,
Zero.
no, not at all. No, not at all.
People died of flu. Not one.
Not at all. No, not at all. Because of the mask usage.
Not one person. Not one person died.
You don't want to let me talk. According to the data, and obviously the data is not always 100% correct, and perhaps people have died of flu, but because of all the mask wearing due to COVID, we never had a flu season. There was no flu season last year. That's the reason.
Zero. Not one person. You don't think it's suspicious
there was no flu season because of mask wearing.
So, I mean, we totally eradicated flu last year. That's a fairly significant achievement. I would think that would be the headline.
Because of masks and washing hands. It was a news story.
Not one person.
It was news story.
Not one person died of the flu. That's not suspicious.
I never said that. I said the data might not be 100% correct. The news story in the news, what they said was there's no flu season. That's what the story was. There's no flu season because of all the mask wearing and the washing of hands. What are you? What's the conspiracy? I don't understand.
You know what I find amazing? It's like there's all this panic porn about COVID at the moment. Like you've got people like Fauci who are going out saying, even if you've had the vaccine, even if you've been tested, even if those tests have shown that you've already had coronavirus and you can't pass it on, even then you must carry on wearing masks and sanitizing.
Because some of the vaccines won't prevent you getting COVID, they'll prevent you dying. So you'll still test positive, but you either, most cases you won't get symptoms, and in some cases you might still get a little bit sick. So you can still be a carrier. You can still transmit it, but not get sick yourself.
Okay, so in other words, I mean, that's the anti-vaxxer position, if you ask me. What you're doing when you say that to, oh, God.
What I don't understand is why can't you wear a mask? What's the problem?
I do wear a mask, Damon.
What are you moaning about? What's the problem?
I'm not insubordinate. Either you want people to get the vaccine or you don't. When you say something like, if you get the vaccine, you have to carry on wearing the masks, all you're doing is you're saying to people who are not sure don't bother, because what difference is it going to make to your life? If you say to people, get the vaccine and soon we won't have to wear masks anymore, then they'll go and get the vaccine. It's an anti-vax position for you to tell people you have to carry on wearing a mask after you've taken the vaccine.
Yeah, look, Fauci maybe chose the wrong wording. He should have, like you said, he probably should have said, take the vaccine because eventually you won't have to wear the mask. But he's just being factual and truthful because he's a scientist. He's saying that now you must still wear the mask because you can still test positive and still spread the virus, but you won't get symptoms. It's as simple as that.
I think there are a lot of people.
How's that an anti-vaxxer? How is that an anti-vaxxer thing?
I've just told you now because you've always said to me, and you're right, perception is everything. If you tell someone who is not a scientist, who's not interested in what the rate of transmission is or whether or not you can still be a carrier even if you're not sick, if you have no symptoms, and you tell people who've already had it, you have to carry on wearing a mask forever, and then you say to those same people, if you get the vaccine, it's going to make no difference to your life. You're still going to have to wear a mask. You're still going to have to socially distance. Then they're going to say, well, why bother getting the vaccine? Don't you see that's an obvious, logical pathway for people?
Well, the thing is, Gareth, I did agree with you. I said that Fauci probably used the wrong communication. He should have said eventually you won't need to use the mask. But also, Gareth, you also come in across from a point of view of me. I'm only thinking about myself. So the message that unfortunately people are not going to get, as you correctly said, is that it's not just about you, it's about not spreading it to other people. So unfortunately people will not get that message because perhaps Fauci did not communicate it correctly, like you say. But
so
the fact is he's just
do with me.
He's just being factually correct. When you first, what must he lie and say? Must he lie and say that you won't?
He lied. He lied at the beginning of the pandemic because he didn't want people to use up all the masks. So he lied and said masks don't work. Do you remember that?
I don't remember him saying it, but I remember people
did.
reporting on it.
He told people. It's just amazing.
I missed it. Gareth, you're not listening to me. I said I missed it, but I'm prepared to accept that he said it. What is wrong with that?
There is no. Listen to this. I mean, I actually want to move on. I'm so bored with this conversation. You're the only person who's still arguing.
But you're spreading disinformation. You're like making up.
What have I said that's not true in the last 15 minutes?
You said
name the thing I've said that's not true.
You said that what Fauci said is encouraging people not to get the vaccine.
I think it is. That is not factually incorrect, Damon. How many people do you think will make the decision not to vaccinate because they'll go, it doesn't make any difference. It's not going to improve my life. It's not going to make me safer. I still have to wear the mask. I still have to socially distance. So I don't see the point of getting the vaccine. Don't you see that?
It's not about yourself. It's
not about me. I'm telling you this.
No, when I say yourself, I don't mean you. I don't mean you. I mean people in general. It's not about
people. Damon, people are self-interested. So how can you, if you want to encourage people, if you want to give people an incentive to get the vaccine, the last thing you do is tell them it's going to change nothing.
Well, no. Well, as I said, Fauci should have said, eventually you won't need to wear the mask. He just left that out.
So then don't accuse me of saying something wrong or spreading disinformation. I didn't do any such thing.
Well, indirectly you did.
No, I haven't said anything that's false.
No, because you said, look, it's just nuancing of words, Gareth.
Here's Hadmeen. Okay, so don't take it from me. Here's Hadmeen. She could accuse her of the same thing. She says she will trade her mask for the vaccine. Otherwise, fuck it. You see, that is a standard response from most people in the world.
Unfortunately, that's a real self-absorbed, selfish attitude, which unfortunately most people have.
You don't think it's selfish because you're afraid of this thing to tell everybody to keep staying in their houses locked down and wearing masks forever. That's not selfish?
No, I never said that.
You're worried about it? Because you're worried about it.
I'm talking about wearing masks. I'm not talking about being locked down and staying in your house. I never said anything like that.
I think it sounds selfish. I mean, by the same thing. Anyway, all right. So, slice 19.
The idea is to stop the spread of the virus. That is the point, Gareth.
You can't stop the spread of a virus. Can't.
Well, you can by wearing the masks.
No, it doesn't. It's got a whatever percentage efficacy. But you're telling me earlier that we completely stopped flu. So you really have a
No,
lot more faith in these
there
masks.
was no,
You
there was
you
no
have greater
flu.
faith in the masks
There was
than the
no,
scientists.
Gareth, there was no flu. There was no flu season, and now you saying that masks are basically useless, right?
I did not. Please don't put words in my mouth. All I said is it's not 100% effective, and therefore what you said about the fact that there couldn't have been one.
How effective is it? So how effective is the mask?
It makes very little difference. If people are sitting in a restaurant, they take their masks off, then they put them on again when they walk out of the restaurant. Do you really think that the spread of this virus is being contained when you take it off to eat your food in the restaurant, but you put it back on to walk in and out of the door? It's a play. It's a pantomime. We're putting on a fucking show for each other here. It's ridiculous.
Now that is disinformation, what you just said. Totally not
No,
true.
it's not disinformation.
Why is everybody wearing masks around the world? For fun. It's a pantomime.
To make the Chinese rich, if you ask me.
Now that's disinformation. That's conspiracy talk bullshit. With all due respect. Honestly, Gareth, you should be ashamed of yourself. You should be ashamed of yourself. That's disinformation. That's conspiracy bullshit.
Yeah,
How dare
I mean,
you should be ashamed of yourself. Honestly.
Fair enough. Whatever.
You're basically saying that masks are useless.
No, I've completely
People
lost the
must wear
ability.
masks,
I've completely lost the ability to have a serious conversation with you about
No,
this.
Gareth, I'll say the same thing.
You are one of those people who's completely lost all sense of reality when it comes to talking about these things.
Gareth,
You yourself could not. You said earlier.
For the conspiracy theorists. You've embraced these slander.
Damon, can you not tell?
Charlatans, and you've fallen for these conspiracy
Can you not tell? Can you not?
I am shocked, Gareth. I am shocked.
All right.
I'm
going to mute your microphone here because this is getting insane. You obviously have forgotten your sense of humor in all of this, which to me indicates that you are completely unhinged when it comes to COVID. If you had a sense of humor, if you were able to understand when I say, do you really think I believe that the Chinese making money out of masks is a serious thing? You've forgotten that I can joke. You've forgotten that this thing isn't as serious as everybody else says it is. There are only 53,000 people in this country who've died from it, and most of them died because they had complications of some other kind. Okay. But you don't have any sense of humor about this.
Why have only 53,000 people died?
I don't know, Damon. I'm not the epidemiologist, am I? But that's not a very high number. No, I'm not. Damon, I'm not acting like I quoted one doctor from Stanford just now to justify my position on the fact that it is no worse than the flu. I don't want to talk about this anymore because it's actually not pleasant for people to listen to. I've had enough. Stop. Otherwise, I'm going to cut you off the show. I'm not talking about it anymore. It's enough already. It's boring.
So you spread this information and then you decide let's not talk about it.
Please. You know what? Okay, you're done. I'm done with you on the show. Thank you, Damon. We won't be talking to you anymore this morning. I've had enough. The guy has absolutely no ability to be sensible about this or even to have a sense of humor about it. So I've had enough. It's done. Jesus Christ. You know, this is the problem. It's like there's no like gray area where you can actually talk about this sensibly with some people. And I'm perfectly happy to talk about it and laugh about it and be serious about it at the same time. I really am. I mean, I look at these comments. People go, Mongezi says, Damon, we wear masks for pretense. Captain Cook says, can we mute Damon? Neil says, please bring Gord back. Jesus. Damon, 53 deaths in SA is about 145 people a day. That's about the average for flu deaths. Zandi says, I love masks. There's few strangers which are spitting on my face. Game Palace Place says, or Palace says, yo. Linda says, please can we move on? This is getting boring. Well, that's also why I just cut Damon off eventually. I mean, accusing me of disinformation when it's patently obvious I'm joking. I mean, Christ's sake, do you really think that the reason that we're all wearing masks is because the Chinese are making money? They may be, but that's not the reason.
Well, you guys know, the both of you know how to egg each other on.
Yeah, well,
that's the long and the short of it. You rile him up, he riles you up. But I don't understand why you guys go back to conversations like that where you know you guys are just going to stir each other up.
Well, I think, you know, I wear masks. I don't know why he's saying I'm like an anti-masker or some kind of conspiracy theorist. I wear a mask where I'm required to see. We go and record a TV show every week. Mm-hmm. I wear a mask when I'm required to wear a mask, right? When I go into a restaurant, I wear it. I just feel like we are putting on a bit of a show here. And if you if you're an absolutist, either you're one of those people who goes, well, none of it works, we don't have to do any of it. That's stupid. I also think it's stupid when people go, we must do everything religiously because that's going to keep us alive. It's not true. There's a lot of
I
this
think you
stuff
guys both
great.
have warranted opinions on this, but both of you go to the extreme with those opinions. And so that is why now it gets to this riled up, very emotive point. You guys don't have to argue like this.
I was watching, speaking of this, because I was watching a brilliant documentary yesterday on TV shows in the 80s. And it
Wait,
was,
so what are we going to do about Damon? Is he...
No, just leave him off. I don't need to talk to him today, and neither do the audience need to hear from him. I'm just doing a rough calculation based on the comments, and people are happy that he's gone. So if you want him back, we can get him back another time, and we'll just promise not to talk about COVID. But I was watching this show, and it was all about TV in the 80s. And they showed Phil Donahue, they showed Geraldo Rivera, Oprah Winfrey, and all the big talk show hosts of the 1980s. And what's just happened with Damon, they showed this one episode of Geraldo where like this guy broke a chair over Geraldo's head. And it was just like incredible to see that stuff, because although it was primitive TV by today's standards, like these days, most of the action happens off the air, and most of the action happens on social media where people get into fights and they get fired, and it used to happen on TV. And I don't know if all of it was made up, but some of it was real. And they had this episode where the guy broke a chair on Geraldo's head, and Geraldo Rivera had like a broken nose on his show, and they still aired the whole episode. It was unbelievable. I don't know if anyone remembers that in this country, because I don't think we had his show, but it made such waves in America. And Oprah had those shows where she had like that she would have like the KKK Grand Wizard on and shit like that. It was just unreal, like the kind of risks they would take in those days. And, people would argue and disagree, and then they'd be chased out of the studio. Security would come and get them. You remember the Jerry Springer show?
Uh-huh.
Where you'd have people fighting, and then the security would be brought on to like take them off the set.
Well, and now we have screaming matches in 2021. No. So I don't know. We move on, but we don't.
So here's Ruth with, and this is the last thing we're going to talk about here. This is interesting. Ruth says there has to be a middle ground, and I completely agree with her. We're all adults, and very often in life there are gray areas. That's my position. But for Damon, there doesn't seem to be any wiggle room here at all.
No, but it doesn't come across that way with both of you.
Well, if he says if you have any position other than his position, you're a disinformation agent and a denier and a conspiracy theorist. So it's like, well, there's no room for discussion with Damon in that area. Nothing.
But it's phrases like that. It's phrases like that, and also, yeah, you guys need to actually just have a coffee one day off air.
No, we do.
Agree that when we're on the show,
we won't talk coronavirus.
Well, not even that. It's just about what is best for the show.
Well, I don't really care if we have a fight on the show. I think people like that. People enjoy it. You just can't have too much of it.
Well, you're talking about heydays when chairs were knocked over people's heads. Are we going to get to that point as well?
If we were in the same room, I would have chased him out of the studio.
Oh, yeah. Lord. Oh, no.
Are you joking? I used to do this all the time when we were in the studio together. I would chase Damon out of the studio regularly. You don't remember that?
Yes. Yeah. I know phones being thrown across the room, but that is here's
Damon. Damon says that was good. See?
Well, what the hell? You know what? Who am I defending here? You know what? Actually, carry on. Where's a candle? I need to light a candle. I don't need this energy in my house. I'm gonna humana himini right about now. Where's my candle?
All right. Well, I would say bring him back, but we've got to get to Sean Sanders just now. I've got some other emails, so you know what? Mike seems to understand it. It's entertainment. There we go. Admin says yes, the fights are entertaining. Mike says people love drama. Rosalie says we want Damon.
I need to be a yoga instructor. That's what I need to do now in life.
All right.
That's where I'm at.
So listen, here's a story.
Okay, do you want to talk about some news? Yeah.
Yeah, I want to get into this because we were talking about DMX last week and how, when he died, he's got like 20 kids or whatever it is that he's had with all these baby mamas. And apparently there's scammers who are trying to find a way to make money out of DMX's funeral. You've got to hear this. This is unbelievable.
Well, when you listen to it, it shouldn't come as a big shock to people because people are going to try to make money some way, somehow. But there are two parts of it. The family DMX's family has actually had to release a statement to rectify all of this and say, firstly, the family has not asked for any crowdfunding. We do not need money. And so please do not believe anything online or donate to anything online that states that DMX's family is suffering. They don't even have money to put together funerals. So please donate. Supposedly scammers have made ridiculous amounts of money based off of this. And also there's another scam that's going around. People saying that the family's trying to get all of DMX's masters, the masters being the ownership of his music.
The original recordings, yeah.
Yes. So they're saying that they're wanting to get money to buy that so that the family owns it because they're alleging like Jay-Z and Beyonce are considering buying the masters for $10 million and they don't want that to happen. But people are actually very coyly donating to all of this.
But you see, remember there was even like a GoFundMe for Harry and Meghan to pay for their $14 million mansion, which apparently they already own. But someone was being a considerate, compassionate, caring person online. I use all those words a little bit more tongue in cheek than I should. And they started a GoFundMe for two of the richest people in the world. And poor people who have much less money, they were giving some of that much less money to Harry and Meghan. And I'm like, well, why would you do that? And here with DMX, you've got people who definitely didn't make as much money in their lives as DMX did. Mm. And they're being conned into handing over cash to a guy who doesn't even need your cash. This is very upsetting stuff. And I'm sure that any artist who has this kind of stuff happen to their fans would be very unhappy to hear it. And especially because he's not around anymore to do anything about it. It must be very frustrating.
Look, should we say good going to the people who have a big heart enough to donate, but also come on, man. Before you donate, just know exactly where the money's going. It can't be some random GoFundMe link. But also with celebrities passing away, I'm now waiting for more scandal to come out. Is there a will? Was it updated? Who's in the will? Are all 50 million of the children listed in the will there? And then what's going to happen afterwards? Where will he be buried? Will he have one of those eccentric funerals? Who knows?
Well, DMX, you never know, right? Because the family get to make most of those decisions. And I'm not sure what the estate was worth at the end of his life, but I know that DMX made a significant amount of money. He was a very successful artist, and he came around at the time when rap was at its absolute height. And he was there for the majority of that window period when rap was the biggest thing. So I'm sure he made enormous amounts of money. Whether or not he held on to that money is a different story. And, when you have 20 children, those children can burn through your cash or the cost of the children or the complications around having different mothers with different children. They can very quickly burn through your money. So I don't know what he was left with.
Look, there's still a lot of money that can be made as well. Just a few weeks ago, it was Prince's family and our dearest Tyker Nelson was commemorating Prince's death. And so what they actually did was they opened up his house in Paisley Park, I think it is, for his fans to walk in and do a bit of a tour and also view his ashes. I don't know anyone who I love enough to go and view their ashes.
View the
not even
ashes.
like-
But don't all of our ashes kind of look the same after we've been reduced to ash? I mean, it's just ash. You know, it's the same as after a fire. You know, the morning after when you made a fire, that it kind of looks like that, as far as I can tell. So I don't know how much. But maybe people think it's really important to see Prince's ashes. Hey, listen, if you're a big fan, maybe that's the thing you want.
I mean, people go. Actually, no, sorry. I clarified. A few weeks ago, they announced it. I think it's still about to take place in the next few weeks, and people are pitching up and making reservations. I think it's silly, but anyway,
we must find out. I know one person who would like to go to Paisley Park to see Prince's ashes. It's Randall. He was a huge fan. I mean, he went to like every Prince concert he could get his hands on the tickets for. Okay, here's a nice message from Savage Reader who says, morning, guys. Please say good morning to your new listener, my Aunt Maxine. So I want to say hello to Aunt Maxine. And here's one of our real legendary listeners and someone who's been a massive super fan from the beginning, Cindy, who says, goodness, Auntie Maxine tuned in on a crazy day. That's right. But I do think like Anton's making a good point, because there's lots of feedback coming in about the Damon Gareth fight this morning. Anton says, that was the type of COVID argument that happens around the country all the time. So I enjoyed it because of the reality of it. Yeah, I mean, this is exactly what people are. They might not be as vociferous as Damon and I, and they might not go at each other's weak points like Damon and I do. People are a lot more polite than he and I are to each other. But this is the kind of argument that families are having at dinner tables across the country and have been for a year. So there's still a lot of disagreement about this stuff. And anyone who says they know everything is just talking nonsense. And especially those people who said they knew everything at the beginning of it in March and April and May last year, those people have been widely discredited. So we've got to take very seriously all of the aspects of this disease. It's changed the world. It's changed the way we live. That's not going to go back to normal anytime soon, I'm sad to say, as someone who prefers the idea of normal in inverted commas. But it's worth saying that we are learning new things every day, and there may have been a gross overreaction to this thing. That's what I predicted then, and I think I'm closer to the truth. Gross overreaction. I think I'm closer to the truth than Damon. Now, one person who made predictions at the beginning of this year, and you should have listened to him, is Sean Sanders. And when we talk about cryptocurrencies, this guy has been really, I mean, frankly, Sean, talking to you every week since the beginning of this year has been such a roller coaster ride, just in terms of what's happened to Bitcoin and Ethereum and everything else. So let's go straight to Sean, find out what the latest is. Sean, of course, is the founder of Revix, revix.com, where you can buy some cryptocurrency. You can trade in the indices that they've got established there. He'll tell you more about all of that at the end of the discussion. But there's a lot to discuss this week. I mean, we're back in the territory of, oh my God, I can't believe this shit's happening.
This is true. So Bitcoin is sitting at $64,250. That is a new all-time high. Ethereum has had an incredible week. I mean, it's sitting at $2,400. I mean, just to put this in context, right? Ethereum was at $250 12 months ago. So to sort of,
unreal.
I don't know, you can't even really exaggerate. The space is just going crazy at the moment. You're seeing so much institutional money into the space. You've seen retail investors, run into the space as well, because all of a sudden they're going, oh, well, this is not just this passing fad. Crypto's here to stay. Bitcoin's challenging gold. Bitcoin could overtake gold within the next few years in terms of market value. I mean, it's just absolutely out of this world. And I think if you had asked me when we started the show with you, Gareth, which is 24 odd months ago, where we would see Bitcoin today, I mean, sure, I would have been like, yeah, we'll see $1 million Bitcoin. I just didn't know it would happen this quickly.
Oh, so you would have said we'd get there, but we wouldn't necessarily put a timestamp on it. So that's interesting, because I do hear a lot of people, Sean, and I mentioned this earlier in the show this morning, and I don't want to quote them without their permission, but there are people who know as much as you, or perhaps just a little less than you, but people who certainly know more than I do. And they're saying things like, oh, this is going to go to $100,000 before the end of the year, maybe even more than that. And I don't think those people are wild optimists in the Bitcoin world. They're probably basing this on certain realities. Now, when people ask you questions like that, we've got to be clear. Sean is not some kind of oracle. Nobody is. if he was, he would have put everything he owns into Bitcoin, and he would have been, I don't know, 6 times wealthier right now. But none of us are none of us have a direct line to God on this. But there are things that we can look at to figure out where it's going to go. And that's really the point of talking to you every week, is you've been explaining to us what the underlying value of, Ethereum, of the blockchain technology that people are using to build applications, where that might go. That's why it's going up. And it's also going up because institutional investment is coming into the Bitcoin space. We've spoken about Tesla. We've spoken about some of the big banks. So I want to talk about this quickly, because we don't really talk much about Revix itself. But you guys have some pretty good news. And Revix have just done something pretty incredible. Do you want to share that with us this morning?
Yeah, definitely. So this is sort of one of those Usain Bolt moments where you do that. We've secured our pre-Series A funding, which means that we are off to Europe. We are off to the United Kingdom. We are expanding. We have got offices in Cape Town. So, this is now allowing us to set up offices in Qatar, to set up offices in Frankfurt, and to set up or to sort of further grow our offices in London. We've raised just over $4 million, which is super exciting. So this is actually the first place that we're announcing that, which is super exciting. And I mean, you know what it's like, Gareth. So when you guys build a business, and I mean, everyone that listens to the show, you've definitely started something, if not building a business yourself. I mean, there's blood, sweat, and tears as you sort of grow this little baby that you have that goes into a toddler, then goes into sort of sprinting, running. And now, for us, it's sort of, running around the track at full speed, and it's crazy. And I mean, it's so much fun. So I need to just thank everyone out there that supported us along this journey. It's been just, the biggest gift of my life. This has been the greatest experience. And, again, if you want to support us, you head over to www.revix.com. We are the best when it comes to customer support. We also get you the best crypto prices in the market. I think a lot of people don't really realize that.
Amazing.
We've got a smart routing system that's able to get you better crypto prices than any single exchange. That's sort of one of the big USPs, main selling points that we've been pushing over the last while. But yeah, it's a great time for us. The team's doubling. I will be gray the next time you see me, without a doubt. I mean, in terms of the payroll every month, and in terms of all the rest. But it's exciting.
So listen, man, well done. This is really great news. And we don't often talk about just Revix. We talk so much about the rest of the market and what's going on, and who's coming in and who's spending and who the big whales are and all that stuff. But it's really great to see that you guys are taking off into the stratosphere. And I'm just glad that all of us could be, the whole Cliff Central community could be part of seeing you succeed like this. And of course, as you say, the work is still ahead of you, but this is a space that's just growing and growing and growing. And what a story to tell after the year that we've been through. Amazing.
Oh, yeah, totally. I mean, every single investor that's come on board, and we've had quite a few that have come on board for this funding round, have all come through just Zoom chats. There's been not a single in-person interview or any meeting or anything like that, which is quite phenomenal. And yeah, Gareth, the other interesting thing is Cliff Central was sort of the first big marketing push that we had. By big, I mean, you're talking a few thousand rand, right? So, I mean, back in the day, like sort of bootstrapping Revix, we wanted to try something new, and we approached you to launch this on Cliff Central. And I mean, 3 years later, that's how long Revix has been around. I think we've been sort of on the show for just over 2 years, and it has been the most successful marketing medium. So I think, to a lot of people out there that are potentially looking at marketing your product and, talking about your product and being able to actually have a very authentic conversation, because that's what these are, right? You're very honest and open about sort of where things are. You stutter, you mess things up. It's real communication. And I think that's, really, really important. So, thank you very much for all the support as well.
This is good. You see, I mean, I've known Sean for a long time, and I didn't know that we'd end up doing business together. And it's always complicated when you end up doing business with friends. But when everybody wins, and when so many of our listeners have been telling me that they're so happy that they decided to come on board and to buy some Bitcoin and to work with you guys at Revix, that makes me happy. We're making everybody, it's a win-win-win. We're making everybody richer. We're making everybody happier. We're sharing information that people want to know. There's no downside to this. And I love that. I love when everybody can succeed and everybody can win together.
And that's exactly sort of what we're looking to do with Revix, right? Because I think people don't realize that, if you own a property and a lot of your wealth is sitting in your property, and its property values are increasing, your net wealth isn't really increasing. And a lot of South Africans are sitting in this position right now where you've had this big boom in tech that's happened over the last 2 decades or so in the US. You've sort of been excluded from that as a South African. You've seen all these other industries, whether it be biotech, whether it be AI, 5G technology, these are all emerging now. And to a lot of people out there that want to invest in these areas are kind of going like, well, how do I do that? These are the areas where, sure, the high risk investments, most of them. But at the same time, this is actually how you grow your wealth. If you look at a wealthy investor, they allocate their money to these emerging industries and sectors because of the upside potential. And it's always a case of looking at the risk versus the upside. And if you're looking at Bitcoin right now, yes, this could easily go to 100, right? I mean, you've seen so much money into the space. If at any pullback that happens, there's going to be a whole bunch more money that comes in. People are just waiting for that. So I think it's just a really interesting time to be alive. And, with Revix, we want to be able to enable you to invest in the areas that you believe in and obviously become wealthier and be able to climb, your own ladder because of that.
Well, I think this is so awesome, and well done to your investors for also seeing a good company to get involved with as early as they have. And obviously, your success is going to lead to the success of all those people who participate in your platform. So let's all get involved. All right, I don't want to spend the whole morning talking about you because there's lots of other stuff that we do have to address. You mentioned the price of Bitcoin at the moment, but there are questions. Andre says, and again, Sean is not going to come at this from the point of view of a financial advisor, but Andre wants to know, he says, if you had a choice, would you change your salary in, let's say, a company where they gave you this option to be based on Bitcoin or any other coin rather than fiat? For instance, would you rather receive 0.5 Bitcoin than 450,000 Rand for the year?
Yes, but I'll preface that by saying that you do pay your taxes in a fiat currency. You also do have your just general living expenses in a fiat currency. And over the short term, crypto can go up and down, right? So that may mean that you have 20% less salary over a given month. It may mean that you have 20% more. Obviously, this would have been a fantastic strategy over the last 2 years or so. But, you do have the volatility. And sometimes, is that worth it over the long term? Potentially. But, you're only with a company maybe for 1 or 2 or 3 years, generally speaking. So yes, but just think about your own financial situation. I actually can't provide a definitive answer. Something that we do at Revix, though, and I'll be quite quick with this, is that we do enable a lot of the contractors we work with to be paid in Bitcoin. Why? Right. Because we are an international company. Paying rands is painful, and it's not because of exchange controls. I mean, we pay from an international company. It's just that exchange fees are really, really high, and crypto sort of circumvents that. It lowers the fees.
No, that's absolutely right. Here's a question from Robert, and then we're going to close it off for today. Robert says, Sean, I opened a Revix account and invested in Payment Bundle. I realized that my RA is going to be useless. Would you recommend I redirect that contribution to Revix options? Well, can I just say that obviously Sean's going to recommend that you redirect that to Revix. But you've been clear about this from the beginning. Rather diversify. So, don't put all your eggs in one basket. And if you're on the Payment Bundle, Robert. So, I mean, I'd put some money into that. I'd put some money into some of the other bundles if you want, and then have some other assets as well. You don't want just one kind of thing. That's where people get burnt.
Exactly. Do not look at one investment. I don't care if that's Bitcoin. I don't care if it's the Payment Bundle, Smart Contract Bundle, Gold, you name it. Diversify. It's the only free lunch, and the only time that you actually really appreciate diversification is that when you've had one investment that goes really sour, and that's the big investment that you were part of. So, in my opinion, just make sure that you do contribute to your RA. You get a lovely tax deduction for that as well. Diversify.
Yeah, and let's not forget that there were probably a lot of people who bought Bitcoin maybe 5 or 6 years ago who, for a very long time, except up to maybe halfway through last year, were quite sour about the fact that they'd bought all that Bitcoin. It didn't feel to them like they'd invested in something useful. Many of them sold out and made a terrible loss.
Oh, yes. And remember, this is going to be up and down. Like, we are sitting at 64,000. This can go up to 100,000, but it will pull back at some point. And it's not going to pull back, back down to $5,000 or $10,000, but it is going to pull back. And, again, no one can time that. Don't try to think you're smarter than the market. That's my best advice I can possibly give you. Just, look at the long-term trend and contribute a small amount on a regular basis. That's something called dollar cost averaging. There's not enough time to really talk about that now, but that is the best investment strategy across the board. It doesn't matter what asset you're looking at.
I'm so proud of what you guys are doing. Revix is the first investment platform in South Africa to offer a behavioral loyalty and rewards program where customers can earn points that can be redeemed for Bitcoin. I'm going to say this stuff because then it doesn't sound like you're boasting. In addition to the funding that you've secured and that you told us about, Revix is also one of 21 startups and the only South African fintech business to be accepted into the world-renowned 6-month Berkeley Blockchain Accelerator. Unbelievable. You're also one of 11 selected fintech businesses out of 500 applicants for Wave 2 of the Qatar FinTech Hub's Incubator and Accelerator program. Sean, you guys are geniuses. Well done.
Thanks very much, Gareth. Yeah, onwards and upwards together.
Absolutely.
Have a great week.
Well done, Sean Sanders. You can find out more by going and joining up with Revix today. You don't have to put a lot of money in. You know, you don't have to be rich to invest in Bitcoin. You don't have to be a gambler. You put $500 in if that's all you want to put in. You know, make a decision today. Revix.com. Rich to be and see that links to your story about Prince's ashes, because that's his song. Hello, Damon Calvari.
As I was saying. I made myself.
As I was saying,
I made myself a cup of tea. I emptied the dishwasher. Bernice and I had a calm chat. So now I'm calm and I'm calmed down. If I'm going to be objective, I think I did lose my temper a bit. And this is on medication. So imagine if I wasn't on medication.
Sure.
Gareth, on the point of objectivity, is there anything that you'd like to say?
I did
yes, of course. Damon, this is what people do on this subject, and I'm not innocent of this myself. I do think it's hilarious, though, that the very argument that you and I were having is probably an argument that so many people in so many houses across the country and the world are having. And we all lose our minds, and we lose our minds because we care about this stuff, right?
Mm-hmm. Most definitely. But again, Gareth, it's all about logistics. I still maintain that we must only bring this up.
Let's not get back into it, please. Let's just not.
No, we should only bring it up at 10 to 8. You see, I didn't blame you there. You started early.
Yeah.
Can we remember that?
I'd like us to just take note of a new listener this morning who Savage Reader says that their aunt Maxine listened for the first time this morning. So I think from Damon and I, we just want you to know, Aunt Maxine, it's not like this every day. We don't fight every day. It's only really occasionally. So, we want to make it very clear you're welcome, and it's not a very angry place.
And we can talk about random things like how much your poo weighs. See, we don't always fight.
Well, if you've probably got a very interesting article there, but just offhand, I reckon if you make a good duck, you could easily poo a kilogram. Hey?
No.
Half a kilogram, 500 grams?
What?
Yeah. Okay. So I assume you're saying this, Damon, because you've weighed yourself on your bathroom scale before and then after, right?
No, funnily enough, not. I just remember having a conversation. Remember our good friend Tony Whitten back at 5FM? He's the one who we once had a chat about it. And it made sense because you can do a good log, a good log, at least 100 grams, minimum 100 grams. And you weigh yourself off. You always weigh yourself after a good poo. But can I say something? And this is something that people don't like. This is something that people don't like to talk about. But do you ever make a really good poo in the morning, and for the rest of the day, you're still remembering that good poo? Where you looked in the toilet and you thought, wow, that looked good.
What are you even remembering about it?
Just that it was a good poo, a good solid poo. Because as a person, as an IBS sufferer myself, if you make a good poo, it's memorable. It's memorable. And throughout the course of the day, occasionally you get a flashback of what a good poo you made. You telling me that's never crossed your mind?
Maybe I'm in the minority. I don't even look at my poo.
You have to look at your poo. Doctors will tell you that you must look at your poo. I'm actually being serious. I'm not joking.
Yeah, I don't have any health issues just yet, knock on wood. But
you actually do have to check. Damon's right here, because if you don't, you could have blood in your stools, you could have floaters or sinkers. It all tells you a huge amount about the. But
the worst is melena, not malema, melena. Now, melema is just a fancy medical term for black sticky. Now, if you have black sticky poo, it means that you're bleeding in your small intestine, and by the time it goes through your body, the blood, it's the blood has gone black and sticky, and it feels really bad. Now, funnily enough, I won't mention any names. I know somebody who told me they recently had a black sticky poo. And I was concerned, but you know what? It turns out she had a thing called milk duds. Apparently, if you eat a lot of milk duds, which I've never ever done, it's an American thing. Apparently, that'll make your poo black and sticky. Interesting, hey?
Here's when I stopped looking at my bowel movements, and I should remember it when Michael Flax is next on the show. He and I once went to a restaurant we will not name because it's very popular. And we went out for lunch, and we had their major speciality was a rainbow cake. Do you know one of those cakes with like a bunch of different layers and they're different colors?
That's not in fashion anymore, but anyway.
Yeah, it was a couple of years ago. So we had that, and we went our respective ways. We went home. We clearly both had bowel movements. And when I looked down at my stool, it was kind of multicolored. I kid you not. It was rainbow colored from all of the dye.
Well,
and I thought, this is weird. By the time I got to work the next day, you know when you're looking at someone and you want to say something, but you don't know how to say it. Michael and I both had that thing with each other up until we both had to fess up like, hey, something weird happened when I had a bowel movement yesterday. It's normal.
A couple of things on this. First of all, that would be a really interesting gender reveal. I mean, there's a gender reveal. You can keep it to yourself. And you don't have to reveal to anyone else. Like your wife or husband can give you mystery food when you have a blindfold on, and then you can go and check in the loo like 12 hours later or whatever, and then you'll know what gender your child is. Now there's an interesting gender reveal.
Well, I had a garlic reveal. So I went through a phase where I was swallowing.
What?
I'm going to tell you now. I was swallowing a clove of garlic every morning, thinking like a pill, thinking that the body digests that clove of garlic. Well, the one day I looked down in the toilet and there was the clove in the log. So yes, it was a whole clove. So you actually have to mince. You have to mince the garlic. You can't eat the whole clove. It just goes through the system. How's that, huh?
All right. I know a lot of people find this stuff very, very lavatorial, but the reason that we're talking about this is because there is actually an article that I read just the other day. Apparently, the maximum weight of the average human bowel movement is about 500 grams, Damon. So if you're doing a kilogram, that's quite a lot. If you're doing less than that, that's normal.
Okay.
Apparently, it's about 400 to 500 grams in a good sitting, and that usually indicates that everything is healthy, everything works. So, in case you were wondering,
I was correct.
Yeah.
And
carnivores, what's the size of an average steak? That goes between like 350.
Oh no,
350 grams to 500 grams.
Yeah, you could eat a half kilogram of meat, and that will have a severe impact on the size of your. Here are the things that it depends on, right? The variance. Yeah. So number one is body size. Bigger people do make bigger poos. Number two, eating habits. So obviously, there are some foods that, and the amount of food that people eat. This is where something like a 500-gram steak can make a massive difference. How much water you drink. Because obviously your body has a water balance, and anybody who has a scale, these days they make these incredible scales that actually give you a percentage of water in your body, right? If you put in your height and you get on the scale and it measures your weight and it calculates how much water you retain in your body. So it should be around 50%. A little bit above is probably healthier, but that's a variant as well. So if you don't have enough water in your diet, and then obviously how regularly you go to the loo. Those are the things. Larger people who eat or drink more or people who have less regular bowel movements have heavier poos. It takes an average of 33 hours for food to be processed and to pass out of your body. 33 hours, so a day and a half, essentially.
Well, interestingly, I've become a bit healthier since the beginning of the year. I've lost actually 7.4 kilograms now. I've started to run again. I'm eating a lot less, and I noticed that my bowel movement is just one a day. In fact, sometimes I will go through a whole 24-hour cycle where I don't make a poo. That's quite something. Now, before, when I was a lot heavier and whatever, I was doing it. My poos were a disaster. It was like twice a day sometimes. but you know what? I still have to. But I still shower. After every single poo, I still go in the shower and I scrub my backside. You know that? I still do that. And if I have to do a remote poo, I have to do it somewhere else. The second I get home, I scrub my backside. It's actually become an obsession now. Even if I go make a poo and it's a clean break, even if there's nothing on the toilet paper, I will still scrub my backside. How about that?
This is important stuff. I mean, where else in the world are you going to? Where else in the world do you have these conversations in an open and honest way without having to feel self-conscious?
Something else that I wanted to bring up months ago, but this is an opportunity. For the last almost a year, I haven't been able to wipe my backside properly because my lower back has been so stiff and sore. I haven't been able to twist and get in there. And only then, since I started yoga has been a lifesaver. I've been able to do it. So I've had to go into the shower and take those scrunchy, scrubby things and get in there.
A loofah?
It's not a loofah. It's those scrungy things. I don't know how.
Aren't you worried about the residue staying on that scrunchy thing?
Well, unfortunately, to be honest, there will be maybe microscopic residue. You try to rinse it as much as you can. If somebody uses my shower, if a guest or someone uses the shower, I warn them. I say, do not use my scrunchie. And my wife
that usually just hang in the shower.
It doesn't hang. It's like I got a glass shelf in the front, and between the glass shelf and the wall, there's a little gap, and I shove it in that gap. But I rinse it as best as I can. Look, I'm the only
one. This is the same shower your wife has to use.
No. Bernice literally maybe might shower 5-6 times a year. She's more of a bather. She likes to sit in the bath like Cleopatra, but she doesn't use milk. She has an ordinary bath and she likes to lie in the bath. You know that I can't even fit in our bath. So even if I did want a bath, I can't bath. I can't fit in our bath. Seriously. Even if I lost 30 kilograms.
All right, but we've missed something quite important here. You let slip that you're doing yoga. So is that at home, or are you actually going to classes? And this you didn't do yoga before. This is new.
This is so weird. You know how people don't communicate. I met this friend of Bernice's more than 10 years ago. Literally 10 years later, she mentions that she's a yoga teacher. I never even knew she was a yoga teacher. So I went to her house twice a week for a couple of weeks, and I had yoga lessons with her. And it was fantastic. That's why my drop foot, you know, the whole drop foot thing? I think that's one of the reasons my drop foot is better. I can now run for the first time in 5 years. I'm able to run again. Can you believe it? It's amazing.
I'm very. That's your plantar fasciitis, isn't it?
No. It's called drop foot. So I'll get a little bit technical. L4, L5, between the fourth lumbar vertebra and the fifth lumbar vertebra, you got your nerve roots. Your anterior nerve root works your motor muscles. Your posterior nerve root works the sensory.
Right.
Usually your posterior nerve root is affected and you're in pain. By some horrible whatever calamity or circumstances, my anterior nerve root got pinched. But I also think a muscle got involved, my piriformis muscle, which goes between your 5 lumbar vertebrae and the head of your femur. I think that muscle was also pinching the nerve as well. So anyway, the yoga helped a hell of a lot. But also cycling. I went to a biokineticist. I think cycling was a big help, but I think yoga was the key. I think it loosened everything up because then I could wipe my backside again. So I realized if I can wipe my backside because of the yoga.
It's very good
Isn't that
news.
amazing?
Well, here's Corona's boring do the alien thing, who says, I'd paid money to see Damon in the lotus position. Have you tried the lotus position? Can you do that?
I've heard the expression. I don't really do the lotus. I'm not sure. I don't think I use the lotus. But the one position that I do mainly, I don't even know what it's called. You take your one leg, you bend your knee in front of you, and you bend your knee behind you of the other leg, and you go forward, and then you swap legs, and that stretches out the piriformis and the lower back amazingly. It's really good. Then I do a thing called the plow, where you're sitting on your bum and you flip your legs over your head.
Yes.
The problem is my book is still too big, so I can't get down 100. So I could get down a lot better than before. Before I couldn't even do it at all because my book was too big. My azimuth was too big. Now
your
I can
azimuth.
do it better. Yeah.
I'm impressed. I mean, Damon, 7.5 kilos. That's very impressive. Since the beginning of the year, you say.
Well, 7.4. The main thing is that I'm running.
Counting?
I'm running again, which is a huge thing. But you know what? I don't want to get ahead of myself. It's a process. I could easily relapse. I got to be careful. I got to make sure.
Well, I mean, also, you're not getting any younger, so you need to look after yourself. Otherwise, you won't make it to your daughter's 21st birthday.
Well, that's the thing. When I was 26 years old, I never ran for a whole year because I had hurt my back. Because the whole of '94, during the election year, I couldn't run. And then a year later, I ran again, and I got back to fitness quite quickly. Now I'm almost 50 years old. I haven't run for 5 years. Whoa! To get back into running, the muscles have atrophied. Your body doesn't recover as quickly. I'm in for a really long haul. It's going to take, at the moment, I'm running at about 10 minutes a kilometer. You know how slow that is? That's like a slot. That's a slot.
Walking is faster than that for some people.
Well, exactly. So it's very Rahmanis. I think people in their cars are looking at me like, oh my God. And the odd pedestrian starts making fun of me, and they start doing this with their arms, pretending that they're running with me.
Shame.
So, in fact, I even wrote a posting on Facebook saying, please, if you're on the road and you see me, leave me alone. You don't know what I've been through. And I wrote my whole sad story about leave me alone. I want to get, yada, yada, yada. Yeah. No, I look terrible.
Right.
I look really
Damon, just one last thing before we wrap up the show this morning. This is from Eleutheria. She says, even if you don't use that scrunchy sponge on your butthole, leaving it on a shelf to not dry properly harbors germs. So very, very dangerous. Please,
what does she think? What must I do?
Occasionally, you might want to just drop it in some bleach or something that'll kill all the germs. It might be a good idea.
Oh, what are you talking about? I put lots of soap on it, and it goes through the shower.
No, you need to actually disinfect it occasionally, which means either hydrogen peroxide or some sodium hypochlorite, kitchen bleach.
Eleutheria might be onto something.
All right, Damon, very, very good. All right, very good work, and well done on your 7.4 kilos.
I'm glad you brought me back. I actually packed my headphones back in the drawer. I had to take the headphones out of the drawer. I said to Bernice, you think I'll be back on the show? She says, I doubt it.
No, you can. No, Damon, you know what? We've been rude to each other too many times to stop doing it now.
Okie dokie.
All right. Yeah. Have an awesome day. Thanks, Damon.
Excellent. Wonderful.
All right, there he is. That's Damon Calvari, everybody, and thank you for all your comments. We probably had more interaction on this morning's show than on any other show. My God, comments have just been coming in thick and fast. So if I haven't put them up on the screen, I apologize. If we didn't read them out, I apologize. But it's always good to hear that people are having a good time. And there's nothing like a good fight to get people to have a good time. We will be back tomorrow, but let me just remind you, in case you haven't put it in your diary, you can create a little alarm clock to remind you that tonight is So What Now on ENCA. Make sure you don't miss our show. We need you to watch it live, otherwise we don't get the numbers for ratings. And, then what's the point? What's the point if we're not getting ratings, right, Sia?
Yep. We need you 8:30 on ENCA DSTV channel 403.
That's right. Tonight we have the famous Jean-Jacques Cornish, who, by the way, we will be chatting to again this week in order to bring you that proper African analysis update that we didn't get to do yesterday. But he's on the TV show this evening. The brilliant and amazing and talented Dabiseng Moleko, who was our guest on the Burning Platform a couple of weeks ago. I had some really interesting fights with her on that show. Speaking of fights, so she will be back this evening. And Reg Lascars, who is one of the sage, sensible, reasonable, rational, but also hugely optimistic people who I refer to often when I'm not sure what the hell's going on around me. So we're all trying to figure out, so what now? That's tonight on ENCA with those three on the panel, and then a very interesting guest, a guy called Rabbi David Rosen, who's in Jerusalem, who works in interfaith movement. He's basically trying to get the best out of all the different religions and help them to help each other to do some important things to help advance humanity, to start finding the common ground rather than the reasons for us to hate each other. And he's doing really incredible work. He's actually spent 5 years in South Africa, and he says that those 5 years in Cape Town really influenced him in an enormous way. Currently, he's so connected, this Rabbi David Rosen. He knows the Pope. He can pick up the phone and he can call the Pope. That's how important he is.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't have to say anything else. That's all.
No.
Just join us in the show tonight, 8:30 on ENCA channel 403. Thanks, Sia. Thank you, everybody else. We'll see you tomorrow at 6 a.m.